Friends, today we can have a detailed discussion on the WH questions or work questions. What is a WH question? A question made with a WH word. Which are the WH words in English? The words like when, where, what, why, who, whose, whom, how, etc. Now look at these sentences. What's your name? When did you come? Where did she go? How does he walk? All these are examples for WH questions. You know, in the exams, you may be given a declarative sentence with one part in italics, and you may be asked to frame a question to get the words in italics as the answer. Now we can study how to do that exercise. Now look at the sentence. He went to the post office yesterday. The word yesterday is given in italics, and you are asked to frame a question to get the words in italics as the answer. It means that you have to make a WH question. So first, forget about the answer part, that is yesterday. What is the remaining sentence? He went to the post office. First, change it into a yes or no question. See whether there is any auxiliary verb there. You don't find any auxiliary verb, so you have to take the main verb, split it into two parts. Then you get did plus go. Take the first word from there, put it before the subject, then you get the yes or no question. That is, did he go to the post office? If you put the correct WH word before a yes or no question, you get the WH question. Now think which WH word you have to use here in order to get the answer yesterday. You can easily find it when. So our answer is, when did he go to the post office? Look at the sentence again. He went to the post office yesterday. Here, instead of yesterday, the words to the post office, that part is given in italics. Then how would you change it into a WH question? Forget about the answer part. What is the remaining sentence? He went yesterday. Change it into a yes or no question. Did he go yesterday? Now think about the WH word. You can easily find out the WH word where. Where did he go yesterday? This is how you can change declarative sentences to WH questions. Now look at this sentence. He drives his car slowly. Slowly in italics. Then you get, how does he drive his car? How does he drive his car? He drives his car slowly. Now instead of using one word, one WH word, sometimes you may have to use a phrase. For example, look at these two sentences. Only a few boys have turned up today? Only a few boys in italics. How would you make it a question? How many boys have turned up today? He spent a lot of money for the purpose. How much money did he spend for the purpose? So when you refer to a countable noun, use how many. Before uncountable nouns, you can use how much. Again, look at these examples. They go to church every Sunday. Every Sunday in italics. Here you have to ask the question, how often do they go to church? His house is 2 kilometers away from here. How far is his house from here? The river he jumped into is 10 feet deep. How deep is the river he jumped into? She has been singing for half an hour. Half an hour in italics. How would you make a question? How long has she been singing? Okay, now look at this sentence. She paid Mr. John the money. Mr. John underlined. You can make a question in two different ways. One, to whom did she pay the money? Or who did she pay the money to? In the first one, you have used the WH word whom. In the second one, who. If you are using whom, you have to use the preposition to in the initial position. If you are using who, the preposition must be used in the final position. That is why we say, to whom did she pay the money? Who did she pay the money to? The first one is rather formal and it is used only rarely. It has become outdated now. Most people prefer the second one. Again, sometimes a WH word will be the subject of a sentence. In such cases, when you make it a question, the subject verb inversion is not required. For example, if I say, Mr. John invented the corona vaccine. Mr. John underlined. How would you make it a question? Who invented the corona vaccine? Here the word order will be the same as that of a statement. No change in the word order. It is because the WH word becomes the subject of the action. If it is used as an object, complement, or adverbial, there must be the inversion of the subject and the auxiliary verb. For example, look at the sentence. He spoke to Mr. John in the evening. Mr. John in italics. We can make a question like this. Who did he speak to in the evening? So here the WH word stands for the object, therefore there must be the inversion of the subject and the auxiliary verb. Sometimes the WH word may become the complement in a sentence. She is a teacher. What is she? Here A teacher is the complement, and the WH word stands for the complement. In such cases also, this kind of inversion is essential. Sometimes you find an adverbial in a sentence. For example, he went to the theater in the evening. In the evening is an adverbial here. When did he go to the theater? So here also, here in the evening is the adverbial, and the WH word stands for the adverbial. So there must be the inversion of the subject and the auxiliary. Now look at these sentences. The train arrived at 8 o'clock. If you split the verb arrived, you get did plus arrive. Did comes first. Did the train arrive? So you can ask, when did the train arrive? Of course, the answer is correct, but there is a better answer, a more precise answer. That is, at what time did the train arrive? Now, he was born in 2010. When was he born? Correct. But a more precise answer would be, in which year was he born? Now again, sometimes people get confused with certain WH words. Now, if I want to know the career of somebody, I must ask, what is he? Or what does he do? The answer is, he is a teacher. What is your father? My father is a teacher, or my father is a farmer, etc. Who is your father? Then you are supposed to give the name of your father. Mr. John is my father. Who is your father? Mr. John is my father. What is your father? My father is a teacher. Now suppose some 2 or 3 persons are standing somewhere. I don't know who your father is. Then I may ask you, which of them is your father? Then you may say, the second from the left. So, which of them is your father? Or which is your father? The second from the left. So, these 3 questions have different answers. What is your father? Who is your father? Which is your father? Now, sometimes you find questions like this. This is Mr. John's umbrella. Whose umbrella is this? So I think I have said enough about the WH questions. Now, teachers, especially English teachers, find a puzzling question. A student would come out and say, teacher, I want to make a sentence so that the answer is, Mr. Modi is the 18th Prime Minister of India. How can I make a question to get it as the answer? Or, I am the second son of Mr. Kumar. How can I ask a question to get that answer? It is, of course, a confusing question. Actually, it is not very simple. There is no simple expression to ask such a question. It may be because the native speakers are least bothered about the numerical status of a prime minister or any individual. So usually they don't ask such a question. Now if you are very particular, you can put the question in different ways. I'll just mention some of them. In the succession of the Prime Ministers of India, where does Mr. Modi stand? Or, what is the chronological order of Mr. Modi among the Prime Ministers of India? Or, what is the numerical status of Mr. Modi among the Prime Ministers of India? Or, which of the Prime Ministers of India is Mr. Modi? All these questions are in a literary style. But we want a question in a colloquial style. Now, language has different forms: colloquial language, official language, scientific language, legal language, literary language, etc. These questions come under literary language. We want a question in the colloquial language, but for that there is not any simple expression. Now let's take up the second one. I am Mr. Kumar's second son. Which of Mr. Kumar's sons are you? Or they may ask, you are the second son of Mr. Kumar, aren't you? Or you are the eldest son of Mr. Kumar, aren't you? That is how the native speakers put the question. Now, when I think of these questions about the Prime Minister, I remember a statement made by Randolph Quirk, a great grammarian of the last century. He cites the example of a person who knows only literary language. If anybody asked him to write an article for a magazine, he would be able to do it in a flowery language. But this man was not familiar with the colloquial expressions. Now, when we meet a person after some time, we may greet him saying, "Hello, glad to meet you." He would say, "It's my pleasure." But this gentleman was not aware of such expressions. When he meets somebody, he would say, "I apprehend the atmosphere of spontaneous delight at your presence here." By that time, the other person might have escaped from there. So, the language we use must be suitable to the context. Okay, friends, now we can stop here and continue in our next class. Thank you.